A couple of years ago, I made a video on my W124 project about lubricating the blower motor for the air conditioner. Yes, it did give me a couple of years of silent operation, but in reality that's only a temporary fix and you're still going to have to replace the motor at some stage. Once those side bushings are worn out, there's nothing you can do about that. If you can rebuild them, yeah, that might be an option, but in most cases it's just going to be time to change the motor. Now, from my research in the parts manual, this is the part number for the non-cabin air filter version manual dual zone air conditioning setup. The MB part number is the XREF one, and the VMO part number is the V part number. And from first impressions, it's ridiculously high quality. I have bench tested it, and it's completely silent. No vibrations, no nothing. Obviously, other than the wind noise. But yeah, it's made to a extremely high standard. I'm very happy with this. I have a feeling it's probably even better than the original. So I'm going to go ahead and fit that today. That does come with the new mounting bracket and the strap to hold it in place. Hopefully it's the correct version. If it is, you'll see this video. If it's not, I probably won't even make it. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's see if this fan even starts turning. I can hear it struggling. And there's that infamous squeak, which drives you absolutely nuts when you're driving around. So now that we've given ourselves access to do the job, it's time to get started. First thing to do is basically remove everything that's in the way. And the first thing I start with is the sealing strips. They simply pull away. There's no glue used here. Front and rear ones are very easy to remove. As you can see here, just pull straight up. Put them somewhere safe. These mouldings that go to the left and right of the wiper motor, specifically for the earlier version cars, just pull up. They go into riveted in clips on the body. If the clip comes up with the trim, which is not that uncommon, it just means the rivet has corroded. You just replace that with a standard rivet, which I've done to all of these anyway. I then move on to the left and right gutters, and there's simply two Phillips head screws in either side on this car, but be aware you may still have the factory white locking clips towards the center that holds it to that metal frame. Mine are both broken and missing, but the reality is it works perfectly fine without them, so I never bothered to replace them. And it's the same process on the other side. just those two Phillips screws in my case. And it just lifts straight out. And you can see those clips, those mouldings pop into. So the center frame comes out by removing these 4 screws along the top. It's not ready to come out yet though, we're just getting started. There's also the central gutter at the front of the wiper motor that just pops out, it's clipped in either side. And this little insulated partition panel, this one of mine is actually kind of broken, so there may be more attachment points on your good one if you are removing it. Mine only has 3 left. I think there may have actually been a 4th on the right hand side of this image, but it's long gone. So there's 2 thumb screws in the middle, plastic nuts, and there was one clip that goes onto a threaded stud on the left here. That was quite annoying to remove. I spent a lot of time on that. And then it just comes out. We can see the 2 front screws on the top of that airbox assembly. They have to be removed so that the top half can come off. And then there's 4 screws around this garnish moulding that goes on the underside of that wiper motor shaft. Be very careful with these screws and their speed nuts underneath. I've never been able to find them in the parts manual, and I've had to raid them from other cars. I believe late version cars are different here anyway. And you can see those special stainless steel speed nuts as I removed that. There's 4 nuts for the actual wiper motor assembly that need to be removed, 2 on the side and then 1 either side of the centerpiece, and a clip. We'll start with a clip that just comes off with a screwdriver. My rubber buffer that's locking onto is extremely dry rotted. I should probably replace that, but since I don't have one, I'm going to be careful with it for now and leave it. They're all number 10. And come out extremely easily. I've got bagfuls of these nuts, brand new, so I will be putting nice new ones in there. And just to protect my paintwork from the risk of damage from this wiper arm as I'm maneuvering this thing out, I'm just protecting the wiper arm with some fabric bags that I had lying around from new pillows that I purchased yesterday. They fit perfectly, it's like they're made for this job. Now when you're removing this, remember the wiper motor plugs in underneath. You can see the connector here, there was no way of showing that, but it's quite annoying to remove and quite tight. Now the top half of the blower motor shroud just has these riveted on clips that you need to pop off from that removable section. Don't be too violent with them, otherwise you will break them away from the lower half. Once they're popped off, that top section just lifts out. There's 2 more I didn't show on the actual squirrel cages, but you'll work it out. There's 1 clip around the motor itself that pops out, surprisingly, with a Phillips head screwdriver in its hole at the end of that tab. And then there's just 2 wires to unplug and the motor lifts straight out. It's a really easy job, once everything's out the way anyway. The bracket is secured in with 3 T20 Torx head screws. They are self-tappers into plastic, so I like to use a hand screwdriver for this purpose. And anytime you're screwing a self-tapper into plastic, I back it off until I can feel the click of the first thread, and then I go forward. You don't want to cross-thread it. Eventually, it will not accept the screw anymore. And while this is apart, it's a good idea to vacuum out any filth that is accumulating in here. In my case, there was broken glass in there from when I smashed the windscreen out, and I did cut myself once again. It seems I always do when I'm working in this area. So I think I'm going to figure out a suitable end of life video for this fan motor, probably overvolting it and then throwing it into a bucket of water. I want to see it suffer because of the suffering it has caused me. Now it is time to fit the new bracket. Make sure you have the strap installed before you put the bracket in there, because there is no way to put that on once the plastic bracket is secured. Of course, I did make that mistake and had to take the bracket out a second time. New motor simply drops into that new bracket, and make sure the terminals are facing upwards on the right hand side. And it locks in. Make sure the cables are in the recess in that strap and lock it in. And that's done. We can go ahead and test it now. As service manuals always say, reassembly is simply a reversal of disassembly. There's no point showing you that. It's everything I've already done here once before. We can consider this job now done. Now, wouldn't it really suck if I forgot to plug in my wiper motor? Because I never tested that before continuing on with all of the assembly, so that is an entirely possible risk here. But I don't think it's going to be an issue. Just be aware, if you're going to test the wiper, make sure you lower the hood. I don't know if there's enough room for it to move with it open like that. I've never tried, and I don't want to find out. So let's put it in key position 2. Beautiful instant motion of my fan in speed position 1. It basically was seized before and wouldn't even start moving until position 2, sometimes even 3. Absolute silence as far as the motor is concerned, no squeaks, and lots of airflow. Did I screw up my wiper motor? Of course not. Who the hell do you think this is?